All I hear are drills every time I try to close my eyes. Yeah, we're wearing the mic today because there's a whole bunch of construction going on the floor below mine, because apparently something happened with water pipes, and they've had to gut like 2 different apartments below me, so it's what you get for being in a building with old pipes. But if you have not guessed, we are here for the Underworld saga. I'm very excited. Only 3 songs, but I'm sure there are quite a few no longer used, if nothing else, in here, because we know how much I love my drama organ. But first, we will see what we have for the actual song, The Underworld. Also, yes, you're getting a slightly different view of my bookcases, and that's because I have a new couch, which means I had to move my coffee table, which means my usual spot where I would sit cross-legged in front of my bookcases, literally right, you'd see me kind of right about at these shelves, isn't really available. So I do have to stand now, and that's totally fine by me. It's honestly no skin off my teeth. I'm not entirely sure, by the way, also how I'm gonna break this up. I have literally no idea. We'll just find out as I get into editing. We have 3 for the Underworld. We have 1, 2, 3 for No Longer You, and we have 3 for Monster. Okay, so 9 total. Oh, that is fine. So for the Underworld then, I have Clover. I have Felperio 05 or Felperio 05. And then we do have Gwendy. So 2 entirely new artists to me. We love new artists. New artists are my favorite thing. They, you know, new styles. I do see an awful lot of kind of a greenish, bluish tone, which I speculated because of the color scheme of the album art, which we've kind of followed for a lot of these animatics, because obviously most people are not doing full color animatics, and I wouldn't expect them to. Like, good God, the amount of work that would be. But all right. Let's see Clover then. It is admittedly like a little bit strange going back into the Underworld, because I think of reacting to it the first time. Mainly how many people did not like a single thing I had to say about the Underworld, but I would hope that those at least who've come to Odyssey Book Club kind of understand why I love the Underworld section so much, and why the version in here is fine, but I would much rather have the version from the Odyssey, because that version just like rips my heart out and then stabs at it and then lights it on fire and then tosses the ashes in my face like confetti. It's cool. It's great. It's cool. It's great. Flash warning. Oh my. Okay.
Friends.
Oh, I like to see with people rowing at least. Oh, that looks really good. Okay, so the overall design of the ship, like overall, not perfect to a Pentaconter, but I do like how you see the men are kind of seated in almost like their own little areas where they're rowing. Generally, that is what it would kind of look like, and that little area kind of either in front of or behind the feet, think of almost like being on an airplane. That's where they would store their shit, right? That's how that you would do storage in these really shallow boats, because again, these are galley types. Galley types are not very deep in terms of ships, and again, it's because you were usually always sailing in sight of shore, and you usually were also not sailing at night. So anytime they do night sailing in the Odyssey or even here in Epic, it's a big deal because they were terrified of doing it, especially out of sight of shore, but also just in general. The other thing, obviously, that's very different here in the Underworld, in Epic versus the Underworld in the Odyssey, is we get to a place where we then go to this sort of, we were calling it almost like the lobby of the area of the Underworld, but we're not really in the Underworld proper. We're sort of like just outside the gate. That's why I joked it was almost like the lobby. It's like, if imagine it like a hotel. And we are not in a boat during that section. We get out of the boat. We have to do some rituals and stuff, which involve slaughtering animals, and their blood gets used. It's one of the few instances, I guess you could say, of like blood-related ritual and almost magic that you get in the Odyssey, and of course it has to do with the dead, and these ghosts need to almost ingest the blood to interact with Odysseus. Obviously Tiresias first, and then some other people like his mother, and they have a whole conversation, but anyway, I'm pretty sure I went over that with the Underworld before. But regardless. I see some hair, I see a little facial hair. We've given him the head ribbon, which I'm assuming we're taking from Polites. These are great expressions. Until we find the prophet. Good. Yeah, and again, another thing is, they don't go find Tiresias, they wait for him to come to them. Ooh, the color change. The colors, okay. I just realized, like, yes, I mentioned this kind of gray green being the album art, but this particular shade of green and this, does anybody else get Disney's Hercules? Like, where this sort of almost river of sort of souls that Hades has down there. I just had a flash to that. My childhood is flashing at me. Which, fun story about actually Disney's Hercules. I went to go see that in the theaters as a young child. When did that come out? Like early 1998, I want to say. So I was like 7. My brother, who is 3 years younger than me, my brother Luke, who's Radar's dad, for those who've seen Radar. We went to see that, and the bit in the opening where Pain and Panic fall down the stairs, my brother laughed so hard he fell out of his seat in the theater and was laughing and giggling in the aisle. Also, Hercules really became my brother's favorite Disney movie, and he would sing it forever. So I do have, as much as like it's very easy to pick apart that movie, I have some very fond memories of that movie, which is mostly just like related to my childhood. Anywho, sorry, distractions. Ooh, very sketchy, I like it.
All I hear are screams every time I dare to close my eyes.
I like that the way that Clover's moving the camera, it's almost like the boat's really unsteady. There's a good use of the chromatic aberration there in the Palatis flash. Yeah, more of that chromatic aberration. For those who don't remember, we talked about that. The chromatic aberration is if you look in the still image, you see blue going one way, red going another. I know it is that. It might have a whole nother different name, but it's a little art trick you can definitely do, and it's an effect you can put on your stuff, and it definitely can add a lot of dimension and interesting stuff, especially if you're doing something like an animatic here. But I love the idea that they're all coming up out of the water. They all look very faceless. Again, in the underworld, these spirits, these shades, these souls, if you will look like the person. You're not trying to guess who's who. You immediately recognize them, which would have been hella fucking creepy if Clover did it like that, but I also can imagine that's a lot of work. You'd then have to start designing different faces, and it's a lot versus kind of the dripping, ghosty look that's going on here. Again, that's not a criticism, just like, hey, fun fact, when you read the Odyssey, Odysseus, we as an audience and Odysseus has no problem recognizing who's who. Because in general, when you die, your spirit is still going to look like you.
558 men who died under your command.
Oh, I hear you, bass.
Captain,
reaching out towards him. Ooh, I love the fill-in on some of that. It was very watercolor-like.
let the Cyclops live when ruthlessness is mercy.
Oh, that's great, showing Polyphemus turning into Poseidon.
Close my eyes. I no longer dream.
The other men looking really terrified. Green and purple. Interesting, we're changing the colors of the chromatic aberration. That's interesting.
From that night, I keep thinking of the infant
Show the
from
baby?
that night.
This life
Good.
is amazing when you greet it with open arms. Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart.
Okay, so I will note, I had not realized this was apparently a thing that Jorge had decided. In his version of the Underworld, spirits are really only saying, like, the last things they can recall, sort of saying as they died, which, frankly, I don't think makes total sense for Palatis, because he would have been saying stuff about the Cyclops cave, but whatever, regardless. Obviously, again, in Homer, in Greek mythology, that's not the case. You can interact with these spirits, and you can have full-blown conversations with them. They're not, like, again, as long as they essentially partake in this blood that's part of this ritual, you can speak and have full conversations with them. Odysseus speaks with Tiresias, he speaks with his mother Anticlea, he speaks with Agamemnon, he speaks with Achilles, he sees Hercules and Orion, and like he sees all the literally, we play a game of who's who of dead Greek heroes because most of them are dead by this point. But the most important conversations are obviously the one with Tiresias. In fact, actually also the one with Elpenor, his crew member who died on Circe's island, and they hadn't yet realized that. That's actually the first conversation he has with so we talk with Elpenor, we talk with Tiresias, we talk with Anticlea, and we talk with Agamemnon, who again, the thing for Odysseus, he had no idea Agamemnon was dead, and they have a very intense conversation that sort of re-emphasizes some anxieties that Odysseus would be having about what's the state of Ithaca at home, because here's again the case of Agamemnon, the great king from the most powerful of the city-state kingdoms, who came home to have his own life be taken in his hall, who didn't get to see his children. And that's like something Agamemnon says, because my son, like my daughter, like my children, I didn't even get to see my children before my wife, before Clytemnestra, and this murdered me. Like I wanted to see my children and I didn't get. So again, like we're bringing up all these things that would hit Odysseus really hard, because it's like, who does he miss? He misses his son. He misses his wife. He doesn't know what's going on there. He tries to ask Anticlea, and she can only tell him so much. She can only tell him what it was like when she died, and we don't know exactly when she died. And Odysseus doesn't know exactly when she died. Like, how long had she been there? He has no idea. So again, the Underworld is such a beautiful section. It's a very tragic section. It's important though, because we are having the Odysseus whose kleos, whose glory is tied to his exploits at Troy, and to this, the Greek word is metis, his craft, his craftiness, his intelligence, his cunning, and especially as it is linked to his exploits at Troy, the man who engineered the Trojan horse, who did all these deeds at Troy. That character essentially has to die. Well, essentially has already died. And that's because of the trick he plays in the Polyphemus cave by calling himself Outpeace, by calling himself no man. He erases his own identity, and that old identity has to die, because in the Odyssey, like in the context of the epic, the Odyssey itself, all of his kleos, all of his good glory is not going to come from his exploits at Troy. It's going to come from the completion of his nostos, of his journey home. So you need to do the Underworld, because you need to, any last bits that are trying to hang on to that sort of old identity need to die, so that the new Odysseus, or the same Odysseus even, the Odysseus with a more clear focus on get home, complete the nostos with as few trips and side quests as possible, because in the front half, prior to going to the Underworld, he lollygagged quite a bit. They hit his Maras and they raid. The whole thing with the Cyclops didn't even need to happen. He just really wanted a guest gift. The whole thing with the Laestrygonians didn't necessarily need to happen, but they dawdled. And even with Iolaus, they tried to go back a second time. And with Circe, the Circe through the Underworld, it's Odysseus sort of focusing on what the goal is. The goal is get home, complete the nostos. And then the next, at least in the Odyssey, the next book, basically, after the Underworld, speed runs you through the Sirens, Clashing Rock, Scylla and Charybdis, to the Cattle of the Sun, and then he ends up, washed up on Calypso. So it's like he's at that point so focused on getting home, but he ends up getting, sort of by no fault of his own, sidetracked again. So it's sort of part of the importance of the Underworld, and again we give him these conversations with these great heroes and characters, and also even his own mother, and we're reaffirming his resolve to get home. Again, I love this wash that's inside the characters, inside here of Polites. It's watercolor-esque. I don't know what brush Clover's using, but I really quite like it. It layers beautifully. It's in some of the background there too.
That voice. It can't be. Mom?
This very much gives Disney's Hercules. I can take this time to address something, which is, how does Anticlea die? It's just that she dies kind of grief, waiting for him. No reason. And she's older. That is part of the thing. But there's this myth that she flings herself from the rocks, where she sees his ships in sight, and that causes her to go and, erase herself out of the narrative by jumping off a cliff, essentially. No. I think some people got that maybe from like the 97 adaptation that's got Armand Sante. There is a version by a writer from the Roman period named Hyginus. And if you want some of probably the oddest versions of the myths, you go to Hyginus's work, The Fabulae. Hyginus, by the way, is a ethnically Greek writer, and while he is writing in Latin, he makes it pretty clear he's writing about the Greek mythology. He just, again, kind of chooses some of this more strange, esoteric variants of some of the myths, and in his version, Anticlea does off herself, and she does off herself because she thinks Odysseus is dead. But it has nothing actually to do with seeing the ships. It has to do with the father of a character named Palamedes. Palamedes was the envoy of Agamemnon who called Odysseus's bluff when Odysseus tried to get out of the war at Troy. So that's where, Odysseus starts, running the plow backwards, sowing salt, tearing up like he's trying to sow the beach, and the guy and Palamedes is like, yeah, I know he's really clever, and of course he might try to get out of this, so what if I just chuck his baby in front of it? And then he just puts Telemachus in the way of the plow, and obviously that's what gives Odysseus away. But he was really pissed at Palamedes for this, basically calling his bluff. And there is a story that he and Diomedes at Troy conspire to frame Palamedes for treason and make it seem like he was a traitor who was feeding info and intel and stuff to the Trojans, and that gets him executed. Now, obviously, we know about the whole Diomedes and Odysseus conspiring, but the rest of the Greeks didn't. They genuinely believed they were executing a traitor, but Palamedes' father, is forever bitter and upset about this, and so in sort of revenge in a way, at some point he does tell Anticlea, oh, your son, yeah, no, I heard he died at Troy. He's dead, he's never coming back, and this distresses Anticlea so much that she erases herself out. But it has nothing to do with seeing his ships almost coming home with the Aeolus winds, with the winds from Aeolus and all of that. Figured I'd address that because it's kind of a interesting fact, and I've seen that one float around, and it's the one version of the story you will see where it is she offs herself and there's a reason for her doing it. Most of obviously the Odyssey and anybody who's sort of retelling that bit of the story will tell you she just died of grief, and probably also age.
Can't you see I'm waiting?
Is there a texture on this whole thing?
I took too
There is. Oh, I'm just noticing, Clover, you have like almost like a paper texture that's put over this whole thing, which I like a lot. Texture is important. Sorry. Random art nerdy things. It's interesting we have her interacting here because then you would think she would be talking to him, right? But I guess Jorge put these rules in place. It's very interesting how people are trying to get around that in a way. In the mixing, I almost want that louder. That's a very personal taste thing. Like, I want that smackdown of the bell to be louder. Like, give me Bells of Notre Dame loud. Makes me wonder what river we're supposed to be imagining they're going down. Hello, Tiresias, with your white eye. I'm assuming to signify that you are blind. That was beautiful, Clover. Absolutely beautiful. I really like your style a lot. In fact, the expressions, the body language, obviously art-wise, the brushes that you're using, the overall texture that you put on the whole thing, probably as like an overlay or a screen. Beautiful. And again, the colors are gorgeous. Great use where needed of chromatic aberration, even changing the colors on it. One time it's the red and blue. I saw one that was purple and green. Really clever stuff. Nice attention to detail. And again, knowing when so you can save yourself the work, Clover, and like say, okay, we're gonna do stick figures. We're gonna make them sketchier. I don't need to do their whole face. Like, again, that's important for an artist to know where to pace yourself, essentially. That was very beautiful. Again, I'm kind of actually now wondering, since again, they do it like he's sailing down a river. There are, in fact, 5 rivers of the underworld. You have River Styx, very famously. You have the River Lethe, which is sort of the river of forgetfulness, if you will. It wipes your memories. You have the Acheron, which is the river of woe, I believe. You have the Phlegeton, which is the river of fire, and the Cocytus, which I think is the river of tears. Probably we're supposed to be imagining them down the River Styx. It's the most famous river of the underworld, if you will. But there we go, which means next we are going to get into Felperio 05 or it's Felperio 05. I'm not sure which you prefer. My dude, my person. My dude, I do say, is kind of a gender neutral thing. Just FYI. Trigger warning, flashing lights, be careful. Okay, so we are apparently gonna have some flash here. God, let's hope I don't faint and concuss myself. I'm kidding. Am I though? Oh,
Friends,
very light. Oh, because we're out.
Cersei's instructions were clear. No
Oh, I like her
matter
little
what
sun
we
earring.
hear,
I love seeing her sending them off. That's a
until we
nice
find
little
the
touch.
prophet, my comrades, this line confuses your
Also,
mind.
should be facial hair.
So no matter who we find,
And longer hair, but it's our style.
until we find the prophet. Good.
Ready for the color change. Ooh, very nice. I see with flashing lights. Oh yeah. Yeah, again, these is giving me very Disney's Hercules. The image of them being in the water,
All I hear are screams.
which is not the case from
Every time I dare to close my eyes,
record we have of what the
I no
Greeks
longer
believed the underworld was like.
dream. Only nightmares
I like seeing Eurylochus
of those who
worried.
died. Nothing's what it
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
seems.
Did I just see Eurylochus with like a Cloud Strife, Zac Fair like single pauldron buster sword? Because that look was very Final Fantasy VII. I'm not mad, but it does make me laugh.
Wait a minute.
I had a traumatic flashback to 600 Strike in a way that I don't want to think about. Nope, it's fine. We're not going there. Nope, scrub that. We're in the underworld.
We're in the underworld, the past seems close behind. This life confuses your mind.
Oh, coming in a wave. Wow, that's a look. Oh, that's cool. Trying to climb into the boat. That's very traumatic.
Why would you let the Cyclops live when ruthlessness is mercy? All I hear are screams.
Wow, that's really incredible imagery.
Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those who died. Nothing's what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. But in the underworld, the past seems close behind. Thinking of the infant
Ooh,
from that
that's
night.
great
I'm
imagery.
thinking of the infant from that night.
This life is amazing when you breathe
Huh.
with open arms. Whatever we face, we'll be fine if
Interesting.
we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
I will, of course, have to note that as we who are reading the Odyssey, again, if you're in Odyssey Book Club, or at least if you're like me, you know, Palates at this point in the Odyssey, one besides the fact that he's just such a really non-entity in the Odyssey, he's not dead yet at this point. He's very much alive. He's gonna be dying later, don't worry. We just don't know if he dies at Scylla and from Scylla, or if he dies from the, you know, suddenly it's thunder time moment. But he's very much alive at this point, which does kind of make me laugh. And in a way sort of kills the moment, because I know, I mean, and then also I don't think Palates as a character is executed well enough. I see what Jorge's trying to do with him. I think more polishing work needs to be done there for it to actually impact, because the whole thing is, if you don't buy the trope of the cinnamon roll, his character has no impact. So you're so reliant on people buying into the trope. And that's where I say get some more polishing work, so that you're not just reliant on the trope, and that you can get people who maybe don't normally vibe with that trope, especially if you're like me and you don't vibe with that trope where it doesn't make sense in the context of the world and everything else. You can get us more on board, and you're more likely also then to have a much more fleshed out, stronger character. And a character where I will go, yeah, I buy it that he really cares about this one dude and like is so affected by his death. Even though frankly, I would think the murdering of a child by dropping it off the walls of Troy, even though you are in the moral and ethical right in that moment, would fuck you up a little bit more. Because in Greek myth, even though the idea of killing infants is certainly a thing, it was never taken lightly, and most people tried to find a way out of it. Or delegate the task to somebody else, which often means it kind of didn't happen. Just usually how shit came to bite you in the ass later. But the fact that he did it, he watched it happen, he made sure it happened, and Astyanax is dead, I would think that would mess him up a lot more. But that's just me.
Oh, jeez.
I like the It's a good gesture. Ooh.
That voice.
Oh, the expression. Very good.
Mom?
Sitting on a rock. I would almost want to say kind of like a siren, but obviously the sirens are bird-like, so I guess they could sit on the rocks. I much prefer this, where they're not interacting. I think that hurts way more. For this version, at least. Like, obviously, I think the version of the Odyssey is equally heartbreaking, because he does speak with her. But if you're gonna do it this way, where they don't interact, have it, or they don't speak, have it so they're really not interacting at all. And it is almost like a missed moment. I think that really brings that home a lot more. The heartbeat. The quick fade outs on the heartbeat. Nice. Oh, hi, Tiresias. I do think it's interesting thus far. I've seen Tiresias look quite young in all these versions, and it's probably related to the voice actor, but he's an old man in the Underworld. Because Tiresias was said to have lived a very long time. He kind of got his lifetime almost extended by the gods in a way, because of his many interactions with them. So he was very old when he died. But that was lovely. Some really beautiful stuff with color. I loved the image of the men who died as a result of Poseidon coming in on the wave, and the way that the you would almost say a glow was turned up on them. We went for a lighter color. Very cool stuff. Actually, the glow overall, like glow effect, if you will, which was done strictly through color, was beautifully done here. Very nice. And also, again, I like that bit with Anticlea where it's like a missed opportunity kind of thing. So well done, Felperio. Last up, we do have Gwendy, who I've only seen one thing from before, and that was their Done For, which they have a very interesting art style. So I'm curious to see the rest. And initially, we are in black and white, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be seeing the background as either stars or like a cavern. The idea of stars, again, would emphasize how kind of dangerous and risky this whole journey to the Underworld is. You were sort of said to have to sail to the edge of the known world. You had to cross what was known as Okeanos, or Oceanus, the great river that essentially encircles the world, who is also a god. Rivers are both, whenever we talk about like rivers or the like, they'll talk about them, say, oh, they were, you know, a god and the river itself. It's the Greek mythology, trust me, can make your head spin quite a bit. But that's actually quite a beautiful background. I like it a lot.
Friends!
Oh, we got some color.
Cersei's instructions were clear.
Wendy!
No matter what we hear, full speed ahead until we find the prophet. My comrades, this land confuses your mind. So no matter who we find, full speed ahead until we find the prophet.
Oh my god! Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I was like, I was waiting to say something because I wanted to see what Gwendy was going to do with that blood. Oh, holy shit, that's gorgeous. Holy shit, that was beautiful. Because I love that. Because here's the thing. Again, this is part of this ritual that they do in the Underworld, except in the Odyssey, what they have to do is they are on land when they do this, and they have to kind of dig a trench. Into that they you know, basically bleed out I do believe it is a ram, and that is the blood that they use. In this case, we see that they have killed the ram on the ship, which, oh my god, you will have to clean up that blood later, my dude. But I love that we've included that, and that is part of this ritual and how you are able to interact with the shades, that he says Queen Persephone, like, sends out from the Underworld, who come out of the gates of the dead, which is why I say it's like, we're sort of in the Underworld, but we're not in the Underworld. We're almost in like the lobby of the Underworld in a way. But I love how that was done, and the effect of the blood goes in and whooshing out. We see, I'm assuming this is supposed to be the River Styx, because I see that there is a ferryman. There is Charon, or Charon, who is the ferryman, if you will, of the River Styx. I see Cerberus. Gwendy! So pretty. I also like, again, I'm gonna assume this is the stars, that we just see the stars. It looks like, you know, you're on the edge of the world, which is sort of what the Greeks believed. Gwendy, it's so pretty. Why is it so pretty? And the souls are on the banks, which I like. Also, I really love this shade. This aquamarine, teal, blue, green is beautiful. Am I going to find a way to like screen capture this so I can then, you know, eyedropper it and know what color that is? Yes, yes I am, because it's beautiful. Okay, anyway. Oh, and the little, almost like fireflies coming, oh my god. Also, again, we see Odysseus' tunic is blue. The inside of Eurystheus' cape is red, and he has a Buster Sword. The Buster Sword is clearly a thing. Ooh. Ooh, that imagery of the skull of Gwendy. Chiron is now in front of the boat. Before, Chiron was behind. Now we're in front. Unless I was mixing up directions there. It's very possible. Ooh. Are we gonna have souls in the water this time? Interesting. So now we also have souls in the water. Interesting. Ooh. Ooh. Flashing with the black and the red line work. Gwendy! Gwendy! We're cooking. Oh, giving us motion behind him. Oh, we pulling up to the shore? Nice. Okay, their version of... Oh, come on! That's beautiful. I want to say that's like a parallel edit, but we're doing it with his memory where they're tossing that stone to be the anchor and then we turn it into Astina's. Gwendy! This is amazing!
And from that night,
This life is amazing when you breathe with open arms.
He's on the other side of the river.
We'll be fine
Oh,
if we're
or not.
leading from
My bad.
the heart. No matter the place where we can light up the world, here's how to start.
Lining them in a beautiful, almost like periwinkle blue, it looks like.
apologies. That voice.
I love those blinks.
It can't be.
Like, you don't have to take time to animate him blinking at hearing that voice. Gwendy took the time to go, he's not moving, but he's gonna blink. Because sometimes you just do that when you're trying to think of, like, what am I hearing? What's happening? That's a nice touch. Oh, the glow is gorgeous. The glow effect, beautiful. I love the work on her face and her posture and physicality, everything to show that she's older.
I'm right here, Mom. Can't you see I'm waiting? I took too long and ventured too far while you were waiting.
Oh, Penelope's gorgeous. Holy shit. Oh, or is that supposed to be his mom? Shit, his mom was gorgeous. Damn right she was. Of course she was a stunner. Why are we surprised?
Bye, Mom.
Yeah, a lot of people doing the fade out on the heartbeats, which I think is, ooh, that's great. And again, using the chromatic aberration in here, we've done it with a 1-2 tricolor, 1, 2, 3, actually quad color. Yes, red, yellow, cyan, and magenta. Looks gorgeous, in fact, and we have the action lines coming down and we're just shaking him about. That's really great use of editing to get across what you need, and it does, in a way, make your animation life easier because you're not having to change the actual drawing of the character. You're literally just shaking it about, and the action lines will do a lot for you. It's beautiful. Oh, so it's not the inside of his cape, it's his tunic. Interesting that sort of, sorry, I'm gonna pause again. It's interesting sort of the main players, if you will, who we know by name, are the ones who are having their clothing colored in, and Gwendy has made the choice that each character kind of has a color that they go with. You know, Circe was purple, Odysseus has blue, Eurylochus, it seems, is red. It's interesting. Random thing I'm noticing. And the souls almost look like fireflies, is what I think of. I guess these are supposed to be Tiresias. Yeah, ooh, looking very determined. Gwendy. Gwendy, my person, my dude. Gwendy, my dude. It was fucking amazing. I think that's my favorite of the Underworld. If for nothing else than that opening bit of whooshing us into the Underworld. That was beautiful. That was stunning. I like that a lot. I am going to note the idea of, like, I say they kind of look like fireflies. They're, you know, tiny little glow dots. It makes me think of, there's a really wonderful, of all things, a wonderful K-drama. If anybody has ever seen it, called Hotel de Luna, which I do recommend, even if you don't normally watch K-dramas. It is essentially a hotel for spirits that, like, have unfinished business, and it's brilliant. And in that, there is the idea of souls appearing as fireflies in very specific instances. So I just, like, my brain goes there, but I think it's a beautiful image when you're also trying to be like, it's a soul, but you can't necessarily see who it is. And we see him following this one. He's like, this, I got a feeling this is the one I'm following. Again, gorgeous stuff. The colors were stunning. A lot of really great work in editing and in, obviously, the animation. Again, I've now seen that, you know, besides the fact that we apparently love to, it's sort of become visual canon, if you will, that Eurylochus has a buzz cut, but also that he apparently has a Buster Sword. Which, yes, I am not a gamer, but I know what the Buster Sword is. Like, your girl has read and watched the many iterations of Berserk, and I'm very familiar with Final Fantasy VII, even though I've never played it because I'm not a gamer. Video games really aren't my thing, but the lore and the story and the characters and the art and everything of Final Fantasy VII, when I stumbled upon it way back in university, I thought it was fascinating, so I became very well entrenched and fascinated by that world. So I was like, hence I'm like, what's with the Cloud Strife, like, single pauldron Buster Sword look? If that's the thing, I am now going to be expecting to see a Buster Sword on Eurylochus. Although, again, of course, in terms of period accuracy, makes no goddamn sense. I mean, but same thing with the buzz cut. It doesn't make sense that a character like Eurylochus would consistently keep his head shaved, because no, he wouldn't. That wouldn't make any sense for the character unless he deliberately wanted people to mistrust him or think he was a slave, which wouldn't make sense. All right, well, 3 very interesting and different interpretations of the song, The Underworld. There were some kind of similar things that flowed through it, which is the idea of sort of the spirits in the water. This seems to be a very consistent image, and again, like, for me, it always summons Disney's Hercules, because that's the first time I had ever seen the Greek underworld portrayed as having, like, spirits in the water. Now, again, generally in terms of mythology, that's not really what happens. They don't just, like, hang out in the water, because these rivers are sort of part of a boundary to the underworld, so they, you know, go across those rivers. They're no longer dealing with them. They are then inside the underworld proper, where you're not really dealing with, again, the 5 rivers of the underworld. The Styx probably being the most famous. I would say the second most famous in pop culture sense is probably Lethe, which is, again, the river of, like, memory, in terms of it's said to wipe your memories. So really more the river of, like, forgetfulness. But, ooh, that was very interesting. And now I'm very curious to see No Longer You. I'm expecting to see some very young-looking Tiresias characters, even though, again, he is an old man, even in the underworld. But I have been made aware that the voice actor or the singer, and I've actually seen some of the videos he did with Troy, who plays Hermes. I know he's a much younger guy, and so I'm sure a lot of the Tiresias iterations are going to reflect that. What flashes I've seen of him, even back in some of the Circe animatics and here, tells me I'm going to be seeing a pretty young-looking Tiresias. But that's swings and roundabouts, like, whatever. But yeah, there we go. Next will be Drama Organ. Drama Organ!